Okay. Okay. All right. So a very good morning, everybody. Thank you very much, the organizers of this event, for organizing the event, because this is something that is highly needed here in Africa. And I thank the two presenters who just made a presentation. I thank Kashifu Inua Abdullahi, the DG of NIDA, for the insight he has given us as to what Nigeria is doing with regards to this new technology, IPv6, because I also agree with Dorothy that it is very critical for the development of Africa. It is very critical for our economic development. I totally agree that this technology is very, very important, and therefore Africa should take it, very, very seriously. I also thank Dorothy for all the insights she has given to us. So my own presentation is going to be on securing Africa's digital future with regards to AI, sovereignty, and cybersecurity. My own coming to IT was actually through the route of artificial intelligence, because I started studying artificial intelligence in the 1980s by doing a master's degree in the area and ultimately a PhD in the area. So that's how I got really introduced to AI. So this is very, very, very important, a conference. And as I said, my own presentation is going to be largely on AI, sovereignty, and cybersecurity. This is the agenda I'm trying to, present today. The agenda is to look at certain, some introductions. Then I'll also look at the digital crossroads that we have come, to Africa's AI opportunities, the role of AI in Africa's future, the question of digital sovereignty, why data sovereignty also, matters, and so on. I'll also ultimately look at the issue of standards, methodology, and ethics as something that is also key for us to take very, very into consideration. Now, as we all have been hearing, data is very, key in the world we are living in, today. Therefore, we all as individuals, as organizations, and even as countries need to pay attention to data. Who controls data will also be the one that will control the future. Currently, most of Africa's, data are not really being controlled, by us here in Africa. Therefore, that is something we have to pay attention, to. So who owns Africa's data and who would benefit from its future and opportunity? Because Africa is digitalizing very, very rapidly. But most of the time, we don't really have sovereignty over our own, data. This is something, very important that we have to take very, seriously. You see, for Africa to truly benefit from these new technologies like AI and digital infrastructure, we need to make sure that we have data security, because that is one way we can assure our future. AI development is very important, data, sovereignty, and of course, cybersecurity, especially in the world we are in today, in which even IPv6 is going to become a foundational technology through which most of the fourth industrial technologies like IoT are going to be implemented, which means it's very, very critical. But we have to also make sure that here in Africa, that we take into consideration issues to do with ethics and the context of Africa in whatever we are doing with regards to, this technology. As I said, Africa is at a digital crossroad. On the one hand, we are digitalizing rapidly. We are using digital technology to enhance so many sectors like fintech. Today, education, agriculture, health, so on and so on and so forth are being really pushed through the use of information technology in Africa. We are still very much below much of what is happening in the developed parts of the world, but Africa is making greater use of these technologies every day. But with these opportunities also come vulnerabilities, and we have to make sure that we safeguard ourselves from the vulnerabilities, because information technology is, in fact, especially AI, it's like a double-edged sword. It brings so many opportunities, but also it can also lead you into so many things that will make you very vulnerable. It can make us lose our jobs. It can de-skill us. Some people even fear that in the very long term, it might even make humans very irrelevant in the scheme of things in the world going to. So how do we protect our digital assets while at the same time shaping our own digital destiny? The upside is that today Africa has these youth that are very exuberant, that really also have a taste for information technology. We have loads of data, and we have also real-world problems here in Africa in the areas of agriculture, healthcare, education, even in terms of our digital ability to defend, ourselves. All these things are very critical. But the challenge is that in terms of AI, the systems we use here in Africa are not built. Most of the systems we use in Africa are not built by us. They are built, out of Africa. In fact, models that are used to train, most of the data that are used to train, the models are collected, from us here in, Africa. This is making it look like if we are not really serious. We need to be very serious. The question of digital sovereignty is very important. So what is digital sovereignty? Control over our data and infrastructure and digital, policy that goes, with what happens to our data and infrastructure, how we develop this system, how we use these systems here in Africa. The current reality, as I said, is that we are relying heavily on what is given to us from outside. Africa must define its own destiny. Why data sovereignty? Why does it matter? It matters because African data, as I said, is stored majorly in foreign clouds or used to train foreign AI models. If we have a situation where our data is being extracted by foreign countries and made more use of by foreign countries, and use it to build systems that they give back, to us. This is tantamount to digital colonialism. And this is something we should avoid here. We should therefore promote our own local cloud infrastructure, national data protection laws, like we have here in Nigeria, in terms of Nigeria's NDPA Act of 2023, cross-border data governance through African Union or regional frameworks like the AFCTFA, data for development partnerships that benefit Africans. This is what is key. Cybersecurity is very important. Some people say that today, cybersecurity, in fact, cybercrime is now worth about $10.5 trillion. $10.5 trillion. So it's a huge economy. What that means is that the economy of cyber criminals today, if it were to be a country, would be the third richest country after the US, China. It will be cyber criminals. So they have a lot of economic power. They operate almost as if they are running companies. They are taking what they do very seriously. Here in Africa, we saw a 400% rise in cyber attacks in recent years. Critical sectors that are being targeted here in Africa: banking, government, telecoms. In fact, almost all sectors of our economies are being targeted. Therefore, we need to make sure that we have local capacity to be able to withstand all these attempts to target some of our sectors. Now, we have new threats in terms of AI, which today makes cyber attacks to be even smarter. As you all know, deepfakes today, deepfakes are almost being difficult to distinguish from reality. In other words, they've become so good that they are so difficult to distinguish. There are all kinds of videos of people that a lot of people can swear that it is those people when indeed they are deepfakes. Automated phishing. People today can send all kinds of bots in an automated manner to just send all kinds of messages to people. Malwares are set up automatically. So as a result of these new threats, we have to also be cognizant of all these threats and the fact that they are portending growing risks with regard to most of our banking and other critical infrastructures. And when that happens, of course, there's loss of trust in digital systems, and then exploitation of personal and national data could become jeopardized. So what should we do? Cybersecurity should be regarded as a national security priority. We should make sure that we have AI-enhanced cyber defense systems and then national cybersecurity resilience structures. I believe that it is a triple challenge. AI governance, we need to make sure we are masters of how we govern our AI life cycle, from what we want to do, data that we gather, requirements that we get, systems that we build, the infrastructure we set up, and how we build those systems and how we make use of those systems should all be guided in an ethical manner. Data ownership, who controls African data? We must make sure we control our data. Cyber resilience, can we defend ourselves against digital threats? We must be able to defend ourselves. Pathways to forward: invest in local AI talents, and research, build African cloud and data centers. We must establish regional cybersecurity frameworks, and then we must also promote public-private partnerships. Now, research, I also always have been talking about, quantum computing, the fact that this is going to give AI even more power, give, cryptography, more power. Even data security can be easily eroded due, to quantum, computers, but it can also give us, better, powers with which to secure what we have and what we are doing, even in a much better. So Africa must also master quantum, computing. We must make sure that we have our own standards, methodologies, and that much of what we do in Africa with regards to development of AI-based systems and other IT systems, especially today in the era of fourth industrial revolution, are driven by the use of standards that are good from outside and standards that we've developed here in Africa, and our own methodologies on how to make sure we produce systems that are ethical, systems that are not going to be that are not going to be harmful, to us by way of taking our jobs, by way of also making us irrelevant, by way of clashing with our cultures, our religions, and so on. We must make sure that we can produce such systems. This is an area I've always been interested in since the 1980s. And of course, even currently, I have developed a methodology through which you can develop AI systems in an ethical manner. This was published in an international journal. So Africa should be a net contributor to the world. We shouldn't always be a recipient. We must focus on building sovereign from data infrastructure to ultimately, building these systems and making use of these systems. And of course, shaping international standards. In conclusion, what am I saying? I'm saying that we must secure Africa's digital infrastructure. We must secure the AI systems we build. We must make sure that we own our own data, and therefore that we have data sovereignty. And at the same time, we must make sure that we take the issues to do with cyber security very seriously. So let us not only build for Africa, let us also build for the rest of the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Evans. That was really insightful, huh? And you took it to another level. That level of AI. We are not even yet already comfortable with getting our infrastructure ready on the next generation technology. That's the IPv6. And by the way, IPv6 is is 28 years old. It was conceived at the ITF in 1997. That's 28 years old. If that was a child, we expect him to be married now and giving kids. Okay, so coming to the AI stuff, two very important aspects of AI that you brought to the light is the fact that AI is either coming to threaten you or to empower you, and and we have to be very cautious. We have to be very careful. Start right now or yesterday, building the capacity in terms of AI, because if not, we are going to fall in the traps of AI. I'll take just those examples in the US, where you saw lawyers in the courts coming with stuff generated by AI just to be portraying themselves too low, because the cases that were named in their case were faked, and they had to be fined by the chief judge. So we have to know how to use AI, learn how to use AI, and then use it to our advantage. And we'll also take the example of people who have been able today to leverage on the power of AI to really boost their business, boost their activity, boost their productivity. So AI is something really to be considered in Africa. And still yet here on this task force, I am really calling upon us so that we really take this very serious as we think of commitments, that's action plan at the end of this conference, what we want to do. A particular aspect should be put on this AI stuff, and we see how we build our own AI for the region. Prof. Dorothy mentioned in her keynote that the AI model that are using large models from
Model.
other regions, exactly as we have been consuming every other thing. We are consumer in terms of, let's look at the ITF. ITF, we have less than 1% African participation. The internet itself, when we look at the evolvement of internet, things that we could do, we are still consumers. Now AI is here. We want to still be consumer. Let's see how we can adopt AI, develop our own AI, become also vendors, become also solution providers, not only for Africa, but show also to the rest of the world that we can do these things also.